President Biden met with Putin, and things did not go as expected. Will Russia be an ally against China? Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. Putin and Biden met, unmasked, face-to-face for the first time. They even touched each other's hands. I give them credit. After a year of lockdown, I still don't remember how to people yet. Now, U.S. and Russia relations are, well, they've never been good. But as NBC News put it before the meeting, the stakes were high and the expectations were low. Kind of like eating your nephew's homemade sushi. As long as you don't die, it's a success. Optimism. It's when you set the bar so low, you're never disappointed. There are several hurdles facing U.S. Russia relations. One big issue is cyber attacks. Over the past few months, major U.S. industries have been hit by hackers based in Russia. Now, officially, that's not the Russian government, just hackers in Russia. But there's always been a blurry line between the two. Unlike the cyber scams from all those Nigerian princes. What kind of kingdom are they running over there? There's also the problem of 2 U.S. Marines currently being detained in Russia. And Biden has been very outspoken about detained Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny. Biden said there would be devastating consequences if he dies in prison, because the U.S. would never stand for someone who poses a threat to those in power dying under mysterious circumstances while in prison. In response to this threat of devastating consequences, Putin said, sure, but sometimes people who are released from prison accidentally trip and fall down some stairs onto a pair of bullets that lodge into the back of their skulls. It's actually the most common way people in Russia die, which, to be fair, is still more plausible than the official story of how Epstein died. And of course, back in March, Biden called Putin a killer. To which Putin said, and this is not a joke, "I know you are, but what am I?" Biden then threatened to respond with purple nurple. Then Putin threatened to give Biden a wet willy. And that, kids, is how we went to war with Russia. Okay, so thankfully that didn't really happen. But again, all of this is why people weren't expecting much out of this meeting. So it was kind of surprising that these two actually seemed to get along. I mean, as well as could be expected. Putin even showed up on time. He has a reputation for being late to these kinds of things. Putin kept Germany's Angela Merkel waiting for more than 4 hours in 2014. 2 days ahead of the meeting, Putin went from a killer to a worthy adversary. And Putin said he was satisfied with Biden's explanation for calling him a killer. You see, what Biden meant was that he's a lady killer. Come on, man. And for his part, Putin defended Biden. A lot of people accuse him of being old and incompetent, or even that he's suffering from dementia.
This image of President Biden, which is pictured by Russian and USA media, does not correspond to reality. This image of him can feel discouraging, but there is no need to be discouraged because President Biden is a professional. I repeat, once again, he is focused. He understands what he wants to achieve and reaches it very skillfully. You can easily feel it.
Which is a surprise because having dementia was probably Biden's explanation for calling Putin a killer. Biden also left the meeting feeling pretty optimistic.
This is not a kumbaya moment, as he used to say back in the 60s in the United States, like, let's hug and love each other.
I mean, unless you want to.
But it's clearly not in anybody's interest, your country's or mine, for us to be in a situation where we're in a new Cold War.
Yeah, that's because the U.S. is already fighting a new Cold War with China. It'd be rude to try and start a new Cold War when we've already committed to one. In fact, the whole meeting with Putin was about bringing Russia a little closer to the U.S. and a little further from China. I'll tell you more after the break. Welcome back. So it turns out China was a big driving force behind the Biden-Putin meeting. Russia is the closest thing to an ally the Chinese Communist Party has at the UN. They tend to vote together and usually against the U.S. But Russia and China don't exactly get along either. Sure, they give each other giant friendship medals, but they're less BFFs and more people with a common enemy, the U.S. But Biden is looking for a way to exploit the differences between Russia and China. At a press conference after the meeting, a reporter asked Biden if he thought Putin wanted to move away from his role as a disruptor to the U.S. and NATO. Here's how he responded.
Let me ask you a rhetorical question. You got a multi-thousand-mile border with China. China is moving ahead, hell-bent on election, as they say, seeking to be the most powerful economy in the world, the largest, and the most powerful military in the world.
Biden also said Russia is being squeezed by China. In other words, Biden's message to Putin is that China will inevitably stab Russia in the back, which must be scary to Putin because why stab someone in the back when you can just use poison? But the U.S. is willing to work with Putin, as long as it doesn't involve eating or drinking. And this potential alliance is freaking out the Chinese Communist Party, which is why after the meeting, Chinese state-run media said Biden was humiliating Russia by criticizing the Beijing-Moscow relationship. It asks, which country is really squeezing Russia strategically? It's the U.S. Okay, but who's squeezing Russia sensually? Chinese state-run media also said the U.S. has caused waves of harms, yes, it says harms, to Russia, and Biden just wants to pass the blame to China. This is an illusion that is possible only under serious political autism. Political autism is a new one. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Zhao Lijian said, "We have to tell those who try every means to drive a wedge between China and Russia that any attempt to undermine China-Russia relations is doomed to fail." So it sounds to me like China is worried the U.S. might actually be successful at driving a wedge between Russia and China. And that wedge is the U.S. reminding Russia that China is China. And there are some signs Putin may be giving the cold shoulder to China. Weeks ago, Beijing had sent high-ranking diplomat Yang Jiechi to Moscow, but Putin only spoke with him on the phone. Although, to be fair, that was likely a relief for Yang, because not seeing Putin in person means not being offered something to eat or drink from him. Most likely, Putin completely understands what's happening and will use the U.S.-China Cold War to get what he wants out of both sides. Kind of like a kid that causes his parents' divorce, so he can get 2 Christmases. After all, just meeting with Biden was a boon for Putin. Russia's parliamentary elections are this September. Can't hurt Putin's interest to have the President of the United States calling you a worthy opponent and your country a great power. That'll be tough to overcome for everyone running against Putin, who hasn't already fallen down some stairs onto a pair of bullets that lodged into the back of their skulls. So what came out of the Biden-Putin meeting? More after the break. Welcome back. So practically speaking, what actually came out of the meeting? Well, here's Biden.
We'll find out within the next 6 months to a year whether or not we actually have a strategic dialogue that matters.
6 months to a year to find out that? That's like taking a pregnancy test, and the result is you'll know one way or another in 40 weeks. I get it. Any relationship takes time. And this relationship will be largely based on cyber. Security, cybersecurity.
Another area we spent a great deal of time on was cyber and cybersecurity. I talked about the proposition that certain critical infrastructure should be off limits to attack, period, by cyber or any other means. I gave them a list.
Wait, you gave Putin a list of really important targets and said, please don't attack them? Cool. While you're at it, why don't you give those Nigerian princes your social security number and bank accounts? You know, for safekeeping. According to a Georgetown professor, the meeting between Biden and Putin was setting up guardrails so the U.S. wouldn't have to spend so much time responding to escalatory moves from Russia and focus on China. Is it just me, or does that sound like Cold War whack-a-mole? Besides cybersecurity, those guardrails are an agreement to resume nuclear talks and to get ambassadors back to their posts in Moscow and Washington. This includes renewing the New START Treaty. It limits intercontinental nuclear weapons. Though I should add, it doesn't cover tactical nuclear weapons, which make up the bulk of Russia's nuclear arsenal. Nor does it stop nuclear modernization, which probably explains why Putin was fine praising it. This is like fighting someone holding a sword and asking them not to use a letter opener. Okay, I won't use the letter opener, but can the sword be poisoned? So all things considered, the Putin-Biden meeting wasn't nearly the dumpster fire it could have been. In fact, maybe this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship. So what do you think? Leave your comments below. And please support America Uncovered by going to the crowdfunding website patreon.com/America Uncovered. We rely on your contributions. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thanks for watching America Uncovered.